Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the South America podcast, from the Andes to the Amazon and almost to Antarctica. Today, we have a special guest coming to us from Oxford University.
Hi everyone, I'm Youyi. I'm a DPhil student in international development at the University of Oxford. And my research is focused on the indigenous-led sustainable agri-food system transformation inside the Amazon rainforest.
Gosh, a lot to unpack already. You said agro-food, and it sounds like some food for thought. So, what does that entail? What is agro-food?
Agri-food system is including from the agriculture to the food, the whole process, including the food product, food process, food packaging, food retailing, food consumption. All of this, everyone is related with the agri-food system.
I see. And a lot of people might not know, I think, but maybe some people do because of documentaries and things, but there are actually quite a lot of foods that we eat all over the world that actually come from Amazonia.
Yeah. Like for example, the cassava, which we
Hmm.
also call the juca, and the plantain, and a lot of fruits. Some fruits we might don't know, like copaçu, but some fruits, like I guess we're kind of familiar, like star fruit, papaya, mango.
Acai became very popular
Yeah, acai, exactly.
a
The
number of
juice,
years ago. Yeah,
especially the acai juice.
exactly. As a supplement as well, etc. Um, Peanuts too, I believe, come from Amazonia.
Yeah, they also farm peanuts, yeah, and the soya bean. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of these are not native to Amazonia, but are now grown in the area in our days, right, in the 21st century.
Yes, like inside the Amazon, they also try to grow the tomato and the cucumber. Now it's they become one of their main dishes too.
Right. So, and that's a good point to remember is that when we think about, traditional cultures, they are also changing, they're not stuck in
Yeah.
in time, just like we're not. But let's take a step back. So how does someone get interested when you think about international development and maybe, a study career, a study path in this direction? How did you get into this topic and why South America?
Yeah, that's a quite good questions. Like, first started working on agri-food systems during my master's, but because of that was the pandemic, most of what I did was data analysis and the policy advice worker. But even though I become quite interested in this topic, and I learned how central the Amazon is for the global agri-food system, like what we just said, Amazon is provide a lot of food for the world. And also, when I was a small kid, I remembered in geography class, we were taught that the Amazon is the lungs of the earth, and we also discussed its role and the global development. But back then, the focus was always just on the states and the national development,
Hmm.
and almost nobody's talking about the indigenous people. That combination later really inspired me is I really want to start it not only the policies around the Amazon, but also the indigenous knowledge, indigenous autonomy, and the ways communities themselves are transforming their agri-food systems in dialogue with the wild world.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
this is something I notice when I do my own field work is that
Yeah.
sometimes even very remote communities somehow are playing a part in this global food chain, right?
Yeah.
Super
Yeah. And
interesting.
yeah, and they're also reviving their ancestral knowledge. They're kind of showing the world that how to do the indigenous autonomy, how to protect and innovate their indigenous knowledge. I think that would be very meaningful for the world.
Mm. Because of course, yeah, exactly. Their
Yeah.
traditional ways of doing agriculture might be very different from how it's done in, say,
Yeah.
China or Britain, Spain, wherever.
Yeah,
or even at the
exactly.
national level, right? So let's say the Western leaning majority cultures in Brazil or Peru or
Yeah,
Colombia,
yeah.
they're quite different, right? From sometimes from some of the ways agro food is conceived and agriculture is done in indigenous communities in the Amazon, right?
Yeah, when you say that the Tigra, the farmland inside the Amazon, it was completely different with agriculture in China, in US, in Europe.
Hmm.
You can't say the when you go to their Tigra, you're not feeling go inside farmland. You are just feeling you are walking inside the forest. There are fruit trees, and
Hmm.
under the fruit trees, they have juca, have planting, have other species. They have many layers, and they always conduct that shifting cultivations and agroforestries. It's very unique, and I think a lot of people, a lot of scholars, they are trying to learn how to farming sustainable inside the Amazon too. Yeah.
Yeah, you use this term chakra, which is
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, which is quite this Amazonian word
Yeah.
comes from Quechuan languages, and it kind of means exactly like almost halfway between a garden and a field. And as you said, in the Amazonian context, it sometimes just looks like the forest.
Yeah.
Sometimes less so. You know, sometimes it's a bit more cleared, but exactly, sometimes it's like a grove, like a forest grove, and you walk in, but the people will know exactly like, oh, here are my
Yeah.
whatever leaves, these are my fruits here. I get my manioc, my cassava, my yuca, whatever you want to call it, from here. And it's this really developed system. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like maybe for outsider, for me or for you, we go inside. It looks like a little bit massive. Like I couldn't find where is the directions, but
Hmm.
for the indigenous people, they go inside. They exactly know everything inside it, and they have a lot of beautiful stories about the chagras.
Hmm.
Like for example, in the Tikuna communities, they have a story about Iya Iya, and they believe Iya Iya is the ancestors who brought the food for them. Some people told me Iya Iya has no gender, and sometimes he's a human, sometimes he's a deer. I think this kind of ways also shows their values that there is no border between human and nature. There's no border between the human and animals.
Right. And that's a great segue into what I want to ask next, which is you've conducted some field trips and gone
Yeah.
into Amazonia and have seen all of this firsthand. You mentioned the Ticuna people. Could you talk about your project with them and where you were, who the Ticuna are, a bit about this?
Yeah, of course. So I did two case studies, and with the Ticuna communities is one of my case studies. I cooperated with a Ticuna community named Semadinda Macayagu inside the Colombia Amazon. They're near the triple border of Colombia, Peru, and Brazil,
Mm.
and they're also a community near the river. I cooperate with a group of Tikuna women who are reviving their ancestral food recipes. And they have a name. The group's name is Sabores Tikuna. And Tikuna people is kind of is one of the largest indigenous groups inside the Amazons. And they also, the same as other Tikkun, other indigenous peoples, they also suffered colonizations,
Hmm.
also modelizations.
Mm.
And for the community I stayed with, they also have a long-time negotiation with the government.
Right.
Their community, their land is overlapping with the national park. So
Mm.
nowadays they have a lot of cooperation with the national park. Of course, that's a hard and long process to go through. And they have some sad history about the illegal drugs, like illegal cocaine
Hmm.
business inside it. The I think it's a little bit similar with other indigenous communities. Their ancestors, their traditional knowledge is It's sadly a little bit disappeared. They are losing it, but on the same times, there are still people. They're trying to reviving them. They try innovating them. They try to pass those knowledges to the next generations.
Exactly, these kind of, as you say,
Yeah.
revival movements or preservation movements of, yeah, enormous pressure. Many people have to go to school, right? They don't work full time in the community, maybe as kids or as young adults, maybe, right? Even university age. And yeah, how do they exactly get this knowledge passed on? Is sometimes that's a bit difficult.
Yeah, like the community actually have more than 800 people and 189 households. Inside the community, they have one school, and the school teach the Ticuna language, Spanish, and the math. But after around 13 or 14, the kids need to go to the kind of college here, we call it high school, to
Mm,
other in other cities and communities. If they go to the cities to studies, they don't learn tikuna anymore. They don't practice the chagra. They don't practice
mm,
the traditional cooking. So that makes them a little bit like disconnected with their traditional knowledge.
mm,
And also, because the communities also conduct the ecotourism and also some of them is doing the illegal like crops. So they got a lot of exploring with outside. They also play a lot of like social media like TikTok, Instagram. They got a
mm.
lot of connection with outside. They some of their value also changed. Some of people they might think the traditional things is not that good, it's not that cool. Like young people, they more prefer drink beers
Right.
instead of the Masado,
Mm.
which is their choice, but also it's a little bit sad.
Sure. And this masato, it's called chicha in Ecuador,
Yeah.
masato in Peru, and it's this, as you say, this yuca, this manioc, this cassava fermented, made into a kind of thick beer-like substance in some ways. That's usually consumed in large amounts, meal times and rituals and things like this. I've certainly had plenty of it in indigenous communities. You're always offered it. And exactly, if this is replaced with beer, that's a very different relationship with the world in a way.
Yeah.
Culinary, but also social. The way of socialization might be different around different drinks.
Yeah.
I sometimes call this the Bad Bunny effect. It's no disrespect to the artist Bad Bunny, but it's what I noticed too. Instead of listening to the sounds of the forest, you have a lot of like teenagers walking through the forest, ignoring the birds and playing Bad Bunny from their speakers instead. And again, that's the choice. And again, there's no one's to say you shouldn't or should listen to Bad Bunny or any other artist that's available. But it is a change, right? It marks a
Yeah.
break of some kind with the past, which is interesting to observe.
Mm.
So, you said that so you worked with a women's group, and this
Yeah.
women's group are what? They're rewilding their areas and reinvigorating the traditional agroforestry, or I mean, how does this look on the ground? This women's
Yeah.
group.
So the women's group is called Sabores Tikuna, and
Mhm.
what they mainly do is reviving the ancestors' recipes,
Mm,
but they also engage with a huge range of activities. For example, they also let's start from the beginning of the agri-food system, the chakra farmings. They also practice their traditional shifting cultivations and agroforestry. They also exchange the seedlings inside the community and also with the other communities and conduct the local species research. They found they have 8 different types of the planting.
hmm
And one of the most important is they always organize mingas. Minga is a collaborate works inside the indigenous communities. And except this, they also involved the making of the traditional basket, TPT, ceramic pots, and other wooden tools that essentially carrying the crops and preparing meals.
Hmm.
They always organize the cooking conference that's to share and innovate and teach their food recipes. And during this process, they're also sharing the stories, values behind the recipes. For example, a lot of Ticuna food, they're using spicy chilies.
Mm.
In the old time, they do believe that if they eat spicy chilies, the jaguar won't come to them. It can protect them.
Right.
So the women's, yeah, that's way. So the women's start to cooking spicy chilies in the meals. It's also
Mhm.
to protect the communities, especially the case.
Of course. I'm
Yeah.
smiling here because I really like spicy chilies, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking one of my main fears in Amazonia is being in a part of the rainforest where there might be jaguars, which are very beautiful
Okay.
and interesting animals, but of course, fill
Yeah.
me with some some terror.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that will also help me in my in my put on your insect repellent and have some chilies to have no
Yeah.
insects and no jaguars.
Yeah. If you come to Amazon, definitely you have to try the spicy chili dishes, right?
Certainly, they're
And
delicious.
let's continue my topic. Like, what's more innovative is they also conduct the food-based, the community food-based products making and sellings. For example, the agua-based ice cream, and they also opening small family restaurant and
Mm.
ecotourism. They kind of combine all the traditional foundations to face the new challenge, the modern challenges. Yeah.
Lovely. And if you could compare this perhaps with your other field site, your other project was in the Peruvian Amazon, if
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah. You're right.
And this was with the Kucama people, who are one of the main groups along the Amazon River itself and a few of its tributaries.
Yeah. My other case studies I conducted in the Peru, and I mainly cooperate with a grassroots organization named the Chekuni Institute. And they cooperate with a lot of indigenous students and the families, especially the Kukama families, like what you said before. They are combining the indigenous knowledge with agroecology and agroforestries to achieve some innovations inside for the sustainable farming. And the Kukama communities is quite different with Tikuna communities. A
Hmm.
lot of people told me Kukama communities nowadays they don't have their own language, which is not true. They still have their language, but a lot of people a lot of people stop speaking it,
Right.
especially there are four communities the Czech Institute cooperate with the four Kukama communities. Inside these four Kukama community, there are totally maybe not even 10 people can speak a Kukama language. And also that's what you said before, like the Kukama communities, they live near the rivers. They have a lot of knowledge about how to farming according to the seasoning change and the river change. This is also one part of their project.
Certainly. Yeah, it's perhaps interesting to think, maybe for some listeners, we think Amazon and we think Amazon basin, we think Amazonia, and we think very wild and very remote, etc. These are the images that come up far away from cities. But the Amazon River itself is, of course, a major shipping channel within South America, connecting, going all the way more or less from the Andes to the Atlantic. And certainly you can take ferries, large boats. There are boats going with cattle, with pigs, with crops, you name it, all along. And the Kukama, of course, inhabit a lot of these large shipping channels. And so the Kukama are quite involved, let's say, in this kind of Amazon to global interface.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like there, in the especially in the history, like even during the colonial times, the kukama is kind of the agent to connect the outside people with the inland indigenous communities. They are doing a lot of river shapings, and through those river shapings, they're doing a lot of food exchanges and also some small business. Nowadays, they are also doing, in my project, it didn't involve that much about the food sailings, but they are also try to reconnect their food with the river. Like,
Mm.
for example, like their chakras, after they have lowland chakras, have highland chakras, and according to the different seasoning, they are farming the different chakras. They are in different chakras. They are farming different species.
Hmm.
And also they also cooperate with the Chekuni communities, try to produce some small products that made by those kind of food. Like one of the Kukama communities I cooperate with, they are making the agua hair oil, and their agua hair oil is got quite popular.
Yeah, very interesting. So maybe wrapping it all up, what would you say are some of the most interesting lessons you've learned from working with these people? These various
Mm,
peoples, these Amazonian groups, what they're sharing their traditional knowledge with you, and they're in the process of reviving it for themselves as well. But what have you taken away from this experience?
I would say like when I stay here, I always think I'm not doing my research, I'm not working, I'm just living here. I think what I got most important is not just about knowledge, it's more about some life values.
Mm,
Like inside the Amazon, like the Tikuna community, the Kuka communities, they have so many different indigenous groups, different cultures, and different histories all coexisted inside the Amazon. And that creates a wide range of possibilities. For me, I was always thinking like one of the book I read from Escobar, he said a world where many worlds coexist. I really want to pursue the world that how many different imagination about the agri-food futures, how many different alternative to the development and many different pathways towards sustainable autonomy and corporations that can be explored and negotiated.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
if anyone is interested in getting involved in this kind of work, can they reach out directly to these organizations you mentioned, or what would be the appropriate way to go about it?
Yeah, I think they can reach out with the Chinese too. They have their organization, but it's a little bit hard to get touch with the Tikuna communities because they're inside the Tikuna indigenous communities.
Hmm.
But they can search some ecotourism with the Semadinda Makayagu communities. And I do wish everybody can listen to indigenous people's thinkings, understanding their needs, instead of just giving them what you think is good. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a lovely note to end on.
Mhm.
So I can include links to your work, your university profile, academia.edu, whatever below. It's been a wonderful conversation. I hope that the listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have, and always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
absolutely, thank you. And thanks to all of you for listening. And again, if you like what you've heard, please give a like, subscribe for more updates, and we shall continue with more interviews soon. From us, thank you very much and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.